The Arizona Coyotes are back at home as they look to sweep the New York Islanders. I'm going to talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes.
Your Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Locked On Coyotes. I'm your host, Carl Pavlock. Just going to be me for today. Robin was unfortunately not able to do today's episode. Wanted to do a preview of this New York Islanders game because I think it's going to be a big one. So, figured I'd go solo. Before we get started, I do want to thank everyone for making Locked On Coyotes your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. As I said, I'm Carl Pavlock. It's just going to be me for today. The Arizona Coyotes are in a bit of a tough one, probably their toughest homestand yet, which, yeah, is fair because they haven't had many home games. But they are doing a back-to-back. They're going to be facing the New York Islanders tonight at 7:30, and then tomorrow they're going to be facing the Buffalo Sabres. So good that they're going to be at home. Always better to be at home for a back-to-back as opposed to travel. That Buffalo game is going to be at 7. So if you wanted a matinee game, fortunately, you're a bit out of luck, which it's unfortunate. I like the early afternoon Saturday games. I don't know about you guys. Comment below or comment however you comment, and let me know when you prefer to watch games on the weekend. But big matchup. The Coyotes have already faced the New York Islanders once this season. So that means that this is a sweep potential, which is crazy. The Arizona Coyotes are a very not good team. They're a team early in the rebuild. And you don't really expect them to sweep teams, especially a team like the New York Islanders, who aren't great, but they're competent at least. They are definitely better than the Coyotes. Let me say that. It's always tough to talk about teams when you are describing a bottom feeder team like the Coyotes because you don't want to go too hard because they're always better than you, but they're not the best. Like when the Coyotes face the Boston Bruins, they're one of the best teams. They're elite, top shelf. New York Islanders, 2, maybe 3 levels below that, depending on how you count. They are currently 4th in the Metropolitan Division with 35 points, 17, 12, and 1 record. One of those 12 came against the Coyotes. A 2-0 loss to the Arizona Coyotes at home, which is, again, just insane to me. The fact that the Coyotes beat the Islanders, the fact that they beat them as part of that massive 14-game road trip. If you had told me before the start of that road trip that the Coyotes were going to lose every game, I wouldn't be happy about that, but I would definitely be, understanding. That's a tough road trip, no matter how you slice it. And it's always going to be tough for a team like the Coyotes. But how have the Islanders been doing since they lost to the Coyotes? Honestly, pretty good. They have played, sorry, just pulling it up, 15 games since they faced off against the Coyotes. They have a record of 8-6-1. They had a 4-game win streak where they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, Edmonton Oilers, Columbus Blue Jackets, and Philadelphia Flyers before losing to the Flyers the next game. Not a back-to-back situation. There was a couple days off, but they played the Flyers at home and away, and they lost one. So winning streak came to an end, which is always interesting. The Flyers were the only bad team that the Islanders have lost to since playing the Coyotes. I definitely think that there was a bit of a wake-up call in a situation like that. When you're losing to the Coyotes, you're going to try and do something different. Um, some of the other bad teams that they've played, just to kind of show, uh, like I said, the Blue Jackets, they beat the Ottawa Senators. I don't know what to consider the Nashville Predators. Not great, but not bad. They beat the Chicago Blackhawks 3-0 just last Sunday. So, the Islanders are definitely prepared for facing a weaker team, which I do think is definitely an issue for the Coyotes. One of the things that Robin and I talk about a lot, mostly me, because it's something that I think is really the case, is teams that are supposed to play well against the Coyotes don't always do that. And usually the reason is because they're not taking the Coyotes seriously. Not always, but usually. It's they're starting their backup goaltender. They are taking too many penalties in the first couple minutes. That's what happened against Toronto, I believe. They're not prepared for the Coyotes. They think it's going to be a pushover, classic trap game situation, end up, falling flat on their face. And that really only works once. Like, you only have to get like sucker punched by a team, not literally, but sometimes literally. This is hockey, but you know, you only get that one chance to really surprise your opponent and show that you're better than you are. After that, it's less of a surprise. So I am a bit concerned about this one. The Islanders definitely seem like they are more prepared to face the Coyotes now than they were before, which, you know, is definitely not really much you can do about that. It is an unfortunate fact that more often than not with these Coyotes games, it really does depend on what the other team does, less so on the Coyotes. I would love if the Coyotes were in control of their own destiny, if they were doing everything they could to win games and they were winning on their own. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to discount the work that the Coyotes have done. I think there's been some phenomenal individual performances. I think that they do things really well sometimes. This is a team that, you know, will come from behind. They'll keep fighting. They'll do all the good stuff that I like, but they just don't have the skill to really compete against, the top tier or even the less than top tier teams in the NHL. It's just a fact of life. Maybe next season, probably, hopefully the season after that'll be the case. But for now, Coyotes aren't in control of their own destiny in a lot of ways. So it's, definitely something to keep in mind. If you are the Coyotes, if you're getting ready to play the Islanders, you should not expect them to be the same team that you played just last month. It's only been a month. There hasn't been any significant turnover, but still, they're going to be in there with a different mindset. Anyways, I'm going to talk more about this game, but first, I have a quick message from our friends. Um, and that is just a quick little PSA for you guys. Sorry. So let's say you're hanging out with some friends, you're putting back a few drinks, few becomes a few too many, and as the evening comes along and comes to an end, people start to head out. Think about calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's not a big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you tow your car, you kill someone? Everyone knows the risk of drinking and driving, and the results are tragic and often deadly. However, that doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So, if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. And we're back. Carl Pavlock here on Locked On Coyotes. Like I said, just gonna be me for today. But definitely want to talk about this game because it is a really interesting one. The Islanders are going to be coming off a loss. They recently lost 4-3 to the Boston Bruins in the shootout, which again, it's just really funny to me, unbelievably funny that the Coyotes managed to beat the Boston Bruins in regulation, snapping that massive losing streak while being one of the best teams in the NHL. The Bruins, that is, not the Coyotes. Like, if you can beat the Bruins when they're at their best, it kind of says something about you. And it's a little funny looking at the Islanders who did not beat the Bruins, but certainly no statement as to quality for there. The Islanders are definitely the better team. And they did something that we see with the Coyotes a lot. They came from behind. They had to come back twice in order to tie the game and push it to regulation, which is definitely impressive. Uh, I'm sure they would have preferred to come back fully and get the win, but can't always get what you want. Um, Life lesson that we all learn. Um, they went with Varlamov um, against the Bruins, which to me kind of says something interesting about. I keep saying interesting, but it makes me a little bit unsure of what they're going to be doing tonight. Like how the Islanders play with their goaltenders in a back to back. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know. I did not look up all the instances of the New York Islanders having back to backs this season, last season, to see kind of how they handled their goaltender. I'm sorry. It's a very specific situation. I will try better next time. But, you know, that kind of mentality really tells you a lot about coaching, goaltending, just everything. Um, I think like a big sign that I was gonna like Torini is the fact that his first season he didn't tend to start goaltenders and back to backs. I may be remembering that wrong. Last season was just a lot of bad, and I don't like to look back on the bad memories for some reason. Who knows? But you know, it definitely felt like eye test wise, gut feeling wise, I preferred Bears usage for goaltending in back to back over Tocchet's, which is understandable. Robin and I talked a lot about the ridiculous number of games that Aiden Hill started in a row, especially when Prospitov was there. Definitely could have. Didn't really always agree with that usage. But the same goes for the Coyotes. Vimelka has been their definite starter. I would say the Islanders are better than the Buffalo Sabres. Uh, I just wanted to confirm that. And yep, the Buffalo Sabres are at the bottom of the Atlantic. But here's an issue with the Sabres. They score a lot. They are they currently have 115 goals scored in 29 games. Let me just look and see. Yep, no one comes close to that. Closest looks like Edmonton Oilers, 109 goals in 30 games, and then Boston Bruins, 110 in 28. So yeah, I guess that's close. Um, wow. If you told me that the Buffalo Sabres were going to be outscoring the Edmonton Oilers, I do not think I would have believed you. But if you had told me that the Buffalo Sabres were going to be outscoring the Edmonton Oilers while still being last in the division, I absolutely would have believed that. That is just a classic Sabres move. Would have been a classic Coyotes move if they ever had the offense. I don't that's asking a bit too much. But it does bring up an interesting question. We don't know what the Islanders are going to do. What do the Coyotes do in this situation? Uh, I feel like they're going to start Ingram at least once. I kind of think, I'm recording this the night before, so I don't know. We haven't got any kind of announcement. By the time you're listening to it, if it's right away, we may still not know. If it's later in the day, we may know. But predict that they start Ingram for today's game, Vejmelka against Buffalo. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's kind of where my head is. I think you keep Vejmelka for the higher offense team, and also the team that you're more likely to beat, if that makes sense. Like I think that is an easier win with Vejmelka and net than it is with Ingram, the Sabres game specifically. Um, and as much as people would love for the Coyotes to just go full tank, I do not see that happening. They're going to try and win games. It's bad for confidence if you lose too much. Bear still has a job. Players don't tank. All that kind of stuff. So yeah, they're going to try and be competitive. And I think the most competitive way would be starting Ingram tonight. And we'll see. Connor Ingram is a player who came in with just so much potential, so much hype from people on the Nashville Predator side. Like, I want him to really succeed. I do. I would love for him to be the Coyotes' like go-to backup. He has not looked great though. He's started 8 games, has a 1-6-1 record, 4.57 goals against, and yeah, that's not good. I do also think that the Coyotes don't necessarily play as well in front of Ingram as they do Vejmelka. Um, but he's got to make saves. He's got to be better. Hopefully he's had a chance to practice at home, practice with the team, like that. That's big. So hopefully that does him some good. I would love to see Ingram get hot and put up some respectable numbers. Um, but I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this, talking about the odds and what we need to do. But before I do that, I do want to thank everyone again for making Locked On Coyotes your first listen for today. For your second listen, head over to check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the most and the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today is available on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You know how podcasts work. But let's talk about the odds for this one. Like I said, I'm recording this the night before, so I don't have the bet online odds that we always like to go with. But yeah, we've been doing this. God, I think this is the 28th game. So we've done this a lot. The odds have been pretty consistent, especially for a game like this. Um, Islanders are definitely the favorites, 1.5, all that kind of stuff. If I had to guess goals, 6.5, maybe 6, maybe 7 if they're feeling spicy. I doubt it, but I think you're probably going to be looking at that. And, when we're talking about the odds, I do think it's just kind of a vehicle for the game itself and how we think the game is going to go. And unfortunately, I do not think this one's going to be all that great for the Coyotes. Like I said, the Coyotes are not in control of their own destiny. It really does depend on what their opponents are able to do. And I think the Islanders are going to be ready for this one. We talked last episode about how the Mullett Arena is definitely a unique place. Like, they've never experienced that before. They've seen video, they've probably gotten footage of it, but they don't know what the ice is going to be like. They don't know what the boards are going to be like. They don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like. They don't know what any of that's going to be like. But they know who the Coyotes are, and they know what the Coyotes are going to do. And I think the Islanders are going to do a better job, maybe not a perfect job, but a better job at shutting down the Coyotes. They did fine in the last game. They only gave up 2 goals, which isn't great, but I trust the Islanders to score 3 goals in a game more than I trust the Coyotes. So it's not exactly the worst outcome. They just need to get their offense going. Potentially, they're not going to face Vejmelka, which he just Yeah, so good. Um, so that could potentially work in their favor. I am predicting that this one goes to the Islanders. If you had to press me for a score, I think it's going to be close. Um, I do predict, let's say, 3-2 New York in overtime. Sure. Why not? That is my prediction for this. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Coyotes are probably going to have to come from behind a couple times, um, but I think it's going to work in their favor. I do think that there's going to be a little bit of that surprise for the Mullet, but not enough to give them the win. Um, and yeah, which is unfortunate. A lot of people talk about the team tanking, and I want the Coyotes to win every single game, um, because I know that they're not going to, and I know that me wanting that has nothing to do with whether or not they win. So I want them to win. That's kind of how I justify it. It's my third rebuild, so yeah, I have adapted the mental gymnastics needed to survive and talk about the Coyotes as much as I have to with my jobs. By just always having some hope that everything's going to work out and just plan on being disappointed. Um, is that the best way to go? Is it the most healthy? I don't know. It's the way that works for me. So back off. Anyways, it is definitely going to be an exciting matchup. If you are in town, I recommend going. I love the Mold Arena. I liked seeing a game there. I think it's going to be a big piece of Arizona hockey future. So if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, I definitely recommend it. I know tickets are expensive and there's not too many of them. So if you can't for whatever reason, completely understand, especially financial, very much. If you go, take the light rail if you can. Again, uh, don't know your situation, don't know where you live, but I enjoyed it. I think it's a great way to go to games, especially if you, like me, like to consume alcohol at games. We just had that message. Take the light rail home. It's always good. Um, but that is just about going to do it. Sorry, this one's a little bit shorter, probably a little bit rambly too. Solo episodes always get rambly. It's tough when when you're used to bouncing off someone and you just have to talk yourself. But that's neither here nor there. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed listening to my thoughts on the game, even if they are rambling. I I know that I'm usually of two minds for every game, and I think a lot of people are. I think there's bright spots on the Coyotes that people can focus on, and I think there's a lot of not good stuff with the Coyotes that you end up just getting sucked back into, which is never fun. But that is going to do it for me. If you're listening to this, you can head over to Five for Howling and check out my preview of the game. That should be up by the time you're listening to this. Trying to do previews for every game. I've been trying to do recaps, but those are less frequent. But yeah, definitely check that out. Follow the show, LO_Coyotes, on Twitter. It's also on Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. Add us on all the podcast stuff. Do the podcast things. Every podcast you listen to has a list of things to do. You know what to do. Just do that. Best place to get my opinions on hockey is the Five for Howling Twitter. Word 5, number 4, word howling. You could also find me personally at Carl Pavlock FFH. Not checking as much, but maybe soon. But that is going to do it for us. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you enjoy this game. If you're seeing it in person, hope that's a great experience. Don't have any fights in the stands, but if you're just watching on TV, hope it's a good one. Even if the Coyotes lose, you could always hope for an entertaining game. But don't forget to howl on.